If you didn't watch the first video in the series, you may want to go back and watch it first. In this video, we're going to look at some other basic features that'll start to give you more control over your camera. On the front of your camera, on the left side, will be your lens release button. You hit that, twist your lens a quarter of a turn, and the lens will pop off. If you look at the camera body, you'll see a white dot. And if you look on the actual camera lens, you'll also see a white dot. Those line up to each other. That means it's together. And then you twist. It'll only go one direction. You twist till you hear the click or feel the click. And then your lenses change. So you can interchange lenses on these cameras. On the back of your camera, around the record button, so if I turn the camera on, this record button, this switch that's around it, if I pull that to the side, it'll switch to live view. This moves the mirror out of the way, and it shows you exactly what the camera's seeing without looking through the viewfinder. At this point, your viewfinder is not working, and this is the only way you can look at it. This is good to use if you're going to elevate your camera above your head to try and take pictures in crowds. In the first video, if you remember, we were talking about the audio and the no flash automatic modes. We're going to actually look at some of the manual settings and semi-manual settings. So the first one we want to look at is on your dial. If you move your dial so that it's lined up with the A, this is what's known as aperture priority. So this means that you're going to set your aperture using the dial here with your thumb, and then the camera will do the rest of the work for you. So when we talk about depth of field later in the class, you're going to want to either shoot in manual mode or aperture priority. I'd suggest doing aperture priority first because it'll do all of the work. You tell it what aperture you want. And that aperture setting, the choices that you'll make will be based on how much you want in focus behind and in front of your subject. This is most commonly going to be used for portrait photography. To set the aperture, you'll use this dial to set your aperture. When you look through the viewfinder, if the light meter is blinking, it will be the only thing blinking. It means that either you're overexposed or you're underexposed, and the camera won't take the picture. If you adjust your mode dial to the S, this is what's known as shutter priority. This changes the function of your dial back here at your thumb. Changing that will change the shutter speed, the speed that the shutter opens and closes. And so this will allow you to choose the shutter speed, and then it adjusts the aperture to get the exposure correct. And you would use this to photograph things that are moving. The faster your shutter speed, the more will be frozen, the less actual blurriness there will be on a moving object. In slower shutter speeds, you're going to start to get blur. So think about, like, you have the picture and your dog goes running through and it's a blur in the picture, but the rest of the picture is clear. That's motion. That's capturing motion, which we'll talk about more later. This setting is most commonly used to photograph some kind of sporting event. To set the shutter speed, you use the same dial that you would to set your aperture. The dial function changes depending on the mode. If we adjust your mode dial to the M setting, that is full manual. That now means you have to make your changes based on what the light meter is reading. To make all of the adjustments. So you're manually setting the shutter speed, and you're manually setting the aperture. To set your shutter speed in this mode, you use the dial, just like you've done in any of the other shooting modes. But to do your aperture, you're going to hit this aperture button with your pointer finger, and you're going to adjust that dial, and that will only adjust the aperture. You let go of the button, it goes back to adjusting your shutter speed. To set the aperture, you're going to hit the aperture button, which is here near your pointer finger, and then use your dial, and that will adjust your aperture. To manually turn your flash on the left side of your camera, is a flash button. If you hit that button, your flash will come up. There's no reason you need to use this. You don't want your camera's flash up. It can cause red eye issues, but just so you know, that's how you could turn your flash on if you absolutely needed it. This video had a lot more technical information in it. Don't worry. We'll be delving into using these modes as the class goes on. In the last video in the series, you're going to go through menu settings that will help you take complete control of your camera and its functionality.